Yeah, I love Tom Petty. I used to start every run with "I Won't Back Down" by Tom Petty. And that's kind of the mentality we have to have as business owners, right? Stuff is always wrong, and some of our mentality just has to be, don't back down. So thank you for everybody that came out of the sun. It's horrible weather out there, and came inside, so I can't see hardly any of you, so that's good. But I'm here to talk about the concept of being built to sell. But first, I'll give you a little bit of information about me. I'm the co-owner and CEO of 31st Street Capital. My other co-owner is a lot better looking than I am. She's not here today, but she wishes she could be here, and maybe next year she'll be here. We started 31st Street Capital 4 years ago with the goal of acquiring and running one company a year so that we could be business owners again. And so in 2019, we acquired our first company, which just happened to be a flooring company. But we really liked retail flooring. We're like, this is kind of cool. These are nice people, lots of customers, good opportunity. So a year later, we went out to acquire another company. We're like, okay, anything but flooring. And then the best company that came to us was a 13-location flooring company, and we just couldn't say no. So at that point, we gave in, decided we must be in flooring, and we've acquired 3 additional flooring companies. So at this point, we have 44 locations and a $110 million run rate, and we kind of love flooring. Through my history professionally, I've either bought or sold 10 businesses, so this is something that it turns out that I like to do. And my first career was as a high school teacher, so, you know, I obviously know what I'm doing. All right. I want to start off because this whole concept, I hope that not everybody in this room is ready to sell their business now, although that wouldn't be bad if you did. We should all talk afterwards because we need to buy another company next year. But the average business owner, everybody in this room, most of you, 80 to 90% of your individual net worth is that business. That is your net worth. Also, 53% of owners haven't even thought about selling, and 88% don't have a plan. We don't have a plan on what we're going to do with 80 to 90% of our net worth. That's like putting all of your crypto assets into FTX. Thought that might land a little bit better, but it's crypto. I get it. We're not at a technology conference. Fine. A couple more things to think about. Look, the best time to think about selling your business is when it's healthy. So 4.5 years ago, I sold my ownership in an IT services, a technology company, and that company was going up. There wasn't anything wrong with it, and because of that, I maximized the value that I got from that business. Now, 4 years later, it's worth more than twice as much as what I sold my ownership for then. I'm not bitter. But look, you sell when your business is healthy, not when you just had a heart attack 3 months ago and your business is starting to go down and, oh my God, I've got to find somebody that's willing to buy this. You don't do it in the middle of COVID. Thankfully, we found 1 or 2 businesses for sale in the middle of COVID, and we got a discount on one of those businesses because it was COVID. Also, just because you put your business up for sale doesn't mean anybody's going to buy it. It is sad when you talk to business owners that are trying to sell their business and you know within 15 minutes that there's almost no chance that they're going to sell that business because there isn't a business to buy. They are trying to sell you themselves while at the same time they know that they're going to leave. Lastly, all of our businesses are not perpetual. It feels like they should be. Todd talked about it earlier this morning. There's a lot of businesses that thought they would be in business forever. But if we don't reinvent or if enough bad things happen, we go out of business. So today, what I want to talk about is building your business so that it could sell. You don't have to sell it. Early on in my career as a business owner, somebody gave me a book called Built to Sell by John Warlow, and it was about doing the opposite of what, as business owners, we tend to do. We build around what we're good at. We build around ourselves. And John said, no, we build around a concept, a process. We build a business that somebody could buy without us. And that's really what I want to talk about today. So we're going to talk about the 5 simple steps that I want you guys to think about. And the first 3, everybody in this room should be thinking about doing, regardless of whether you're ever going to sell your business. If you're going to hand your business down, if you just say screw it and lock the doors, no matter what's going to happen, you should be thinking about the first 3 things. The last 2 are for people that are actually thinking about selling their business. So number 1, build a team that can run the business without you. Number 2, create a process-driven business. Number 3, and this is a hard one, run the books like it's a business. Number 4, hire a broker to navigate selling your business. And number 5, we'll talk a little bit about selling your business is like riding a wild roller coaster. Some of those roller coasters are more exciting than others, but we'll talk about that. So number 1, how to build your team. Again, one of the big concepts we have to think about and the transformation we have to go through is to think about our business not as a business that revolves around me. It has to be a business that revolves around ideas, processes, and ways of doing things. I would say products, but that's a little tricky. We have to build a team. We typically all started with 1 or 2 people. Like it was either you or it was you and a business partner or your spouse. And you're like, let's do this. And so you start a business and you do all of the jobs in that business. But pretty quickly, if you're good at it, you'll grow. And the next step is you're going to actually have to hire somebody. One of the most important things you can do is continue to make those investments past the first couple easy ones. Look, realistically, it's easy to hire somebody to answer the phones, plug stuff into QuickBooks when you start off, and do all of the little busy work that you don't have time to do. That's easy. Hard is to start thinking about hiring somebody to do the things that we like to do and are good at, like sell, or run the sales team, or run installations. We have to be willing to invest in building a team that will allow our business continue to scale, and it's not revolving around us. There's a concept, people build a business, and there's several different models. One of the models is a genius with 1,000 helpers. Our job is to not be the genius with 1,000 helpers. Our job is to build a team that can run this business. And I say invest because I always looked, when I build a business, I am horrible with profit. Fortunately, there's people around me that make sure the companies have profit because I would spend all of it on people. Like I would just hire 8 more really great people because when you make those investments, the money comes back times 3. When you're thinking about, can I hire somebody to do sales? Can I hire somebody to run my sales team? Can I hire somebody to do A, B, C? You should be looking at that as an investment. I am going to invest $80,000 in this person. I expect a big return. None of these should be, I'm going to spend $80,000 that I'm never going to see again. If you don't look at hiring and building your team as investing, it is the wrong outlook. 2, you have to build a career path, right? So it doesn't matter who they are on your team. They have to know where they're going. There are salespeople that want to be sales managers or regional managers. There are regional managers that want to be the VP of Ops or the COO, right? You want those people that are going to climb that career ladder because if you don't give that to them, Somebody else will. Somebody else will say, well, I've got a regional manager job. This guy's never talked to me about a regional manager job, so it's never going to happen here. I'm going to go somewhere else. We have to be able to do career planning to allow people to know that they can move their career up with us. When somebody quits that's important to your organization, you should always be looking at that and saying, how can I upgrade? How can I hire somebody that is where we're going to, not where we used to be? We do this all the time, whether it's within our portfolio companies. Sometimes somebody will quit, somebody that's important. And one of the things we always go back to is, let's upgrade. Let's look for the person that's great for where we're going, not for where we're at today. All right, those are a couple quick things about the hiring and building. I want to talk about one of the most important things that almost all of us suck at, and that's delegating and elevating. And Brian earlier, Elias, was talking about traction. Delegate and elevate is a concept that comes from traction. Typically, as business owners, we suck at this, right? And we especially suck at delegating and elevating things that we're great at. Because, man, it's painful to watch somebody that is not as good as we are, which is pretty much everybody at every position in your company, for those of us that think we're really good at stuff. Right? I mean, all of you guys have probably done 100% of the jobs in your organization, and you know how you want it done, and those people aren't going to do it exactly the same. But you have to be willing to let go of the vine and understand that they might do it in a different way than you would, but they'll do it in a way that's also really effective. I joke, I had dinner last night with two really great guys, and it's funny because I sometimes share with them my ideas for how they could run the business. And they just, smile at me, and then they tell me I'm an idiot, and then my ideas are horrible, and I'm fine with that because they run the business and they get results. And that's what matters. So when you're hiring, you have to be willing to delegate and elevate. And I always say, be willing to measure the results, not the nitty-gritty, and take 3 steps when you delegate and elevate. And we skip this a lot because we wait to delegate, we don't do it, then we finally hire somebody and we totally don't give them a chance because we don't take the 3 steps. 3 steps to delegating and elevating. 1, you show them how to do it, they watch. If you don't have a process for what you're expecting them to repeat, have them write down the process while you're doing it. Step 2, they do it following their newly created process, and you watch to make sure that they do it right. Step 3, they're on their own. They now know how to do whatever it is you are expecting them to do using a process that's repeatable. Lastly, when you're building your team, you have to take a vacation. It's one of the most important things you can do. When you take a vacation, you tell your team, I actually trust you enough to let you do this job without being here. It's incredible. You get a vacation, and they get a vacation from you. And they get a chance to actually do the stuff you want them to do without you hovering over top of them all the time. And unless the business burns down while you're gone, a vacation is healthy for you and for them. I literally have done this one time, and I've shared this concept with a number of other CEOs, and they've done it, or people that run their own company, and they've done it, and 100% success rate. You have this employee, this leader, this manager that you're expecting to make important decisions, and they come into your office too frequently, and they say, boss, what do I do? This is the problem, what do I do? And you're like thinking to yourself, I'm pretty sure that their job is to know how to solve this problem. But what we tend to do is, because it actually makes us feel pretty important that they want our advice, even though deep down we want them to solve that problem. And here's one way to make that go away forever, because they'll tell everybody else about it, and they will not do this again. But if they come in and it's something they should solve, you're sitting at your desk, and you slowly slide down off of your chair, and you just lay there. And the important part is You have to lay there for at least 30 seconds without saying anything because it makes it super awkward. And you stay there. And after 30 seconds, we'll just pretend the guy's name is Todd, because that's a fun name. Say, Todd, I'm dead. What are you going to do to solve this problem? And they're like, well, shit. Are you trying to tell me that I should know how to solve this problem without you? But then you have a serious conversation to say, this is your job. You are good at this, and I need you to solve this problem without me. And so next time you're thinking about walking into my office to ask me to solve a problem that is your job to solve, I want you to remember, do you really want me to do that again? The answer is no. It's great. I encourage you guys to coach, and then when it doesn't work, try it. I promise it will work. Everybody will be talking about it, and they'll think a little bit more about whether they want to walk in and ask you to do their job for them. It's really important. But I'm very serious about the vacation thing. The healthiest thing you can do for your organization when you are building a team and empowering a team is take a vacation, like a serious, I'm not going to answer calls and text vacation unless the office is burning down. And you will find out who takes responsibility, who steps up, who elevates, and you will find out who does the least amount of effort, and you'll gain more clarity around your team. I spent a lot of time on that, but like the most important thing you can do to ever prepare your business to sell is have a team. 2, you have to create predictable success. A lot of people today have talked about this one concept, and it's called building processes. Again, a little book recommendation, and that's a book called Predictable Success by Les McKeon. And he talks about the steps every business goes through, and you go through them linearly. You can't skip steps. Step 1 is early struggle. I just started a business. Can I make enough money to keep the doors open until I run out? 2, fun. Merry band of rock stars that are great at their job. Business is raining down from the sky because we are great at what we do and we don't charge enough. But something happens around 15 to 20 employees. That's where the merry band of rock stars starts to fall apart. Ironically, in flooring companies, that's right when you guys get to around 5 million in revenue. Gets really hard because all of a sudden it's hard to find enough of those rock stars. Balls start to get dropped. You don't have process because people are just good at what they do, and you're proud of that. But it falls apart, and we go through a phase called whitewater, where we now have to transform the business from being individual high performer focused to being process excellent driven. We have to have managers where you'll hear employees say to you, I'm never reporting to anybody except for Todd. Right? That's hard to get through. Those people will leave, but you'll hire new people that want to be in a process-driven excellence. We have to go through that process of achieving predictable success, or we have to make a decision to say, do we just want to be a lifestyle business? There are people in this room, and I've heard it, that have just said, you know what, we tried a second location, it sucked, it was too complicated, it made life hell. I'm happy with one location and $3 million in revenue. That's a lifestyle business. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually pretty darn good money if you can figure out how to make 10% net income on $3 million. $300,000 is a lot of money. Put it all into crypto on FTX. See, there we go. Second time it landed better. Or we want to build value, and we really have to learn how to scale our business. And when we do that, we have to be ready for whitewater. And whitewater is when we go through that process of having individual high performers, and we go to, we're going to run by a system. We're going to have a sales process. We're going to expect you to do all of the things on the sales process. We're going to have a process for installation. We're going to have a process for everything. And the big difficult part of that is you will have some of your long-term employees that are high performers that will rebel, and they'll say it's either this process or it's us. I'm great at what I do, but don't tell me the 10 steps to take. I know the 10 steps. I'll do 8 of them every time. And that's what they're going to do. And they will sabotage your business until you get rid of them, or you'll be a lifestyle business. So understanding where you're at, that book does such a great job of helping put a light on when you hit those phases. It was transformational for us. I need to push a button again. There we go. Third thing, you have to have clear financials. I've looked at hundreds of businesses that are for sale, and I think about 90 of them had horrible financials. If you have to take 30 minutes to explain where everything is hidden on your financials, that's not good. You have to be able to tell a consistent story of how your business made money, because we're going to ask somebody to give us money for that business. And as a buyer, I pay money for a business that is going to make me money in return. If I can't see how that's going to happen clearly, I will not buy that business, and other people won't as well. So 1, use flooring software. Pro tip, Rollmaster. I'm here at the conference. We got to do Rollmaster, right? Rollmaster is great software. But use a flooring software. Eventually, we're all going to have to grow up, and when we grow up, we use flooring software that keeps things organized. 2, keep it simple. You do not need a chart of accounts that has 800 lines, right? If your P&L can't print on one page, it's a little too complicated. So keep it simple. 3, pay yourself market rate compensation if you're anywhere near thinking about selling your company. If I had $1 for every time I had to try and figure out why the owner either took $0 in pay, but then their net income is overstated, so their value is overstated, or they paid themselves $500,000, which they're not worth that to the company, and then we have to back that out, it gets way too difficult. As an owner, I know your CPA might say, pay yourself $36,000 and that'll keep you out of an IRS audit. Pay yourself market rate so your financials reflect what it would cost for somebody else to run that business. 4th, separate out your expenses. If I had $1 for every time somebody had to try and explain to me that their expenses were overstated by $20,000 because they pay their nanny out of their flooring company, I'd be rich. You can run personal expenses through your business if you want to gamble on that. I don't care. But just put them in one line item, like special marketing. Put it somewhere, right? So you have just one category that we know is just the bullshit category, and we can just put a line through it. Don't spread it out everywhere. Don't put gas in one section and, your trampoline in the other section. Like, we don't need that. It doesn't work. As a buyer, look, when people walk into our flooring store, they want us to tell them a story of how this wonderful, warm business that they just walked into is going to make their flooring dream become a reality. As a buyer, I want to walk into your business and have you tell me a story of how your business is going to print money for the next 10 years, because that's the story I'm looking for. If you can't show me that, because it takes us an hour to figure out all the line items where you stashed personal expenses, the story starts to not work. It doesn't work. So the general rule of thumb is, the more explaining you have to do about your financials, the lower your price goes, right? So you just have to keep it clean. It's really simple, I promise. All right, fourth thing. If you sell your business, hire an expert. So we bought 5 businesses. Of those 5, 3 of the 5 were represented by a broker, an expert. 2 of the 5 weren't. We could have taken significant advantage of that situation. I have a lot of friends who have sold their business. Some of them did use a broker, some didn't. Some got greatly taken advantage of, and others didn't. If your buyer is anybody besides one of your installers, one of your sales reps, or maybe a local competitor, if they're pros, if they're private equity, if they're people that buying businesses is what they do, they will absolutely destroy you if you don't have somebody that can help you through the process. I promise. There are 100 ways that I could tell somebody I will give them $5 million for their business and just absolutely crush them in terms and conditions where they'll never see anywhere close to that. Or they'll just see it in such a weird way that it shouldn't work, right? I've never done that. I never will do that. But I would prefer every seller that we have hire a broker because it makes it a lot easier for us. Selling your business is complex. It requires experience. Trust me, this is not something you go on your own. It's not overly expensive to hire a broker. I have recommendations. There are several brokers that I recommend anytime anybody asks me for a broker. Part of who I would recommend depends on what size of business you have and how much you're trying to sell for. 2, a broker is just like an employee. We should interview them. We should review their credentials, and we should call their references to find out if they're actually good at what they do. Most importantly, your broker is like your CPA. Most of us have CPAs, I hope. I hope one of the things you've learned with your CPA is they spend about 5 minutes a year on your account. Don't expect them to come up with all the different ideas for how you're going to save money or should be doing things differently. You have to trust and verify. You spend a little bit of time figuring out if this guy's giving you good advice or not and whether you should be doing some other things, and you ask questions. A broker is the same person. And lastly, I use the analogy of should people buy flooring at Home Depot where there's a guy wearing a smock that started yesterday and doesn't know anything about flooring, because that's what we as business owners are like if we try and sell our business on our own. We suck at it. I'll use one good example because it's a fun one and some people in the room might chuckle. We, in a pretty large acquisition, there's a process we go through, and I'll refer to this here in a minute, but when you go to sell your business, ultimately you end up writing a LOI, a letter of intent. Once that's signed, you go through due diligence. There's a period of 30 to 60 days where you're going to, as Jason Goldberg says, you're going to put them through a colonoscopy, or 3. But the deal is far from done. We signed an LOI, and a couple days later, the business owner told everybody in the business that he was selling the business. So when we went and walked through, we didn't even have to hide. It was great. Everybody was like, "Congratulations on buying this business. It's great." And I was saying to myself, if only we had bought the business by now. Because we hadn't, right? I mean, it was crazy. Owners need somebody to guide them through the process. If we wanted to, we could have taken advantage of that situation. We could have backed out. We could have said the price needs to be $1 million less. We could have done a lot of things to try and screw that business owner, but we didn't because we wanted to buy a business. This is the roller coaster, and I share this with you because selling is crazy. I'm a buyer. I've been through it more than 5 times, and it's still absolutely crazy. You're going to do owner calls with people that just want to ask everything about your business. Eventually, one of them might make you an offer. That's an LOI. If you accept that LOI after negotiating, and here's a key thing if you're actually thinking about this, you negotiate the crap out of that LOI. Because they'll be like, this is just a letter of intent. This isn't the purchase agreement. But they're going to hold you to that. So that's when you negotiate. You'll go through due diligence where people will ask you for things you didn't even know you had in your business. They will ask you for everything under the sun and 50 things that you probably don't have. It is a colonoscopy. It's the worst 60 days of your life, unless you have a really great team, and then they can handle everything for you. A purchase agreement is where it really gets serious. That's the 45 to 60-page document that has a lot of landmines that can absolutely screw you. And you have to read that very carefully. You have to have a good lawyer that represents you. And there's a very important thing that happens at the very end before closing. And if you have ever sold a business, or you're ever thinking about selling, there's one really important concept. No deal ever gets done until everybody is upset. Like if we're coasting along and everybody's happy, oh, you're not done yet. I mean, I've been like 5 days from closing and I'm like, this is it. This is going to be the one. Nobody's going to be pissed off. And then the lawyer gets involved and like all of a sudden something, oh yeah, by the way, that $500,000 of assets over there, we don't have that anymore. I don't even know why it was still there. You don't get that. What? Now I'm pissed. Every deal, right? You're not going to close a deal until everybody is sufficiently upset. And lastly, one of the most important things we can do as humans is know what's next. Even if you know your plan is total bullshit, have a plan for what's going to... Like, I'm scared to death when we are trying to buy a business from somebody and their idea of what they're going to do next is, I don't know, I'll figure it out. To me, that just means they're going to open another flooring company. Or, I mean, they're just going to wander around to the locations of the company, like peeking in all the time. Like, what's happening? Look, you have to have a plan. We're humans. When we don't have a plan, we die. Have a plan. Think about it. Spend time on it. You'll totally not end up doing whatever your plan is, but that doesn't matter because that means you'll come up with something else, right? So I wanted to make sure I had time for questions, and I think we do. Oh, I think I nailed it. So look, 5 simple steps. The first 3, I wish all of you will really think hard about doing. Build a team that can run the business without you. Create a process-driven business, because when the business revolves around you, you will not be able to sell it, because any reasonable buyer will figure out very quickly that once you leave, everything else is gone. Run the books like it's a business. You should all do that anyway. Hire a broker, hire an expert to help you navigate the selling process, even though it'll make me pay more money for it. And then just be ready for a roller coaster ride. Know that it's going to be a roller coaster ride. And quite honestly, never get married to a deal. Deals fall through. They should fall through. Because the really smart jerk private equity companies that might be interested in looking at your company know they can pull the rug out from underneath you at the end of the deal, take 25% of the value out, come up with bullshit reasons why your business is worth 25% less than what they agreed to at the beginning, and you're still going to say yes because at that point you're married to it. Never get married to a deal. That's why you never tell your staff that you're selling the company until after the money is in your bank account. So I wanted to make sure that I got to this point, and we still had time for questions. I'm going to back up one. So what questions do you guys have? Any question? Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. I was supposed to remember to talk about that. So thank you. We look for companies that have at least 10 million in revenue, and we really like 15 to 20. Below 10, it's really hard for a business to be separated from an owner below 10, right? Anybody here in this room that runs a company that's less than 10, like you still have 3 jobs when it's less than 10. You know, you're likely not to have a sales manager, an operations manager, and an installation manager, and that operations person is ready to step up, hire a new operations manager that he has already trained, and the company can just keep going without you. So yeah, for us, it's 10. I think that's just a really quick comment on that. I think that's also an important thing for you to think about if you're considering selling your company is if you're like 1 million, your buyer is one of your employees or a local competitor or an installer. Like you're not going to be able to sell it for a lot, so somebody can buy that. You get 5 to 10 million and you're actually doing like 8% EBITDA, which you should be doing. On 10 million, that's $800,000. You're going to get a 4x on that, so you want to sell it for 3.2 million. One of your employees probably doesn't have 3.2 million, and the bank's not going to lend them that. So you're looking at a different buyer, right? You're looking at either a really big strategic buyer like a Jason, like myself, somebody else like that, or you're looking at private equity. And there's a surprising amount of interest that's starting to be interested in this industry and wants to pay $3.2 million. as long as they think that it's a cash register that will keep spitting out money. Did that answer your question? Yeah. What else? Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question not to be rude, so I pre-apologize in advance
I like
for
rude
how
questions.
this comes out. Okay. When people like you guys say that you buy companies that are only worth $10 million plus, at what point, how many companies that are worth $10 million do you now turn yourself into another big box location?
That's a great question. So just clarification, that's just a little verbiage, and that's not a rude question. That's a great question. So we look for companies that are doing at least 10 million in revenue. We're not paying 10 million for them. When we buy those companies, every one of our companies is still ran locally by the same leadership team that was there when we bought them. We want them to be invested in a charity, in that local community. We want them to act and be an organization that's going to continue to be great in that location. So, I mean, we are who we are, right? We have 44 locations and 110 million in revenue, and if there's profit at the end of the day that eventually makes it to my wife and I's bank account, then we're happy about that, and that's in Lincoln, Nebraska. But I'm here because I think that this community is a fantastic community, and I think when we all get better, I'm not there to steal your revenue, quite honestly. We as a group should be building better companies, and that's why you're here. That's what makes this different than Surfaces. Surfaces, we just go there to buy stuff. This is where we go to get better at our business. I'm really bad at my job if all I want to do is make money on the heels of you guys losing money, right? My goal is for companies to be successful, and then hopefully eventually get above 10 million and call me because you want to sell it. But look, big box are who they are. We are who we are, which is a company, we believe in buying great companies and helping them continue the legacy that the business owner put in place a long time ago and continue to be a great local company. We don't rebrand. They continue to be good companies in the market. So I kind of answered your question. So what else? Yeah. She asked, do you have a sample sheet of what a good P&L would look like? I don't know that I do, but quite honestly, if you're using Rollmaster, you could send Patrick Ferries. He would love to tell you what a perfect P&L should look like. He would love that. Like, go out there and ask him just for the fun of it to see like his face light up, because he hates bad ones. But just quite honestly, it's simple, right? It's not putting commissions up in cost of goods sold. It's not doing crazy things. So whoever your vendor is could tell you this is what a reasonable P&L. I mean, I'm happy. You can send me an email, and I'll tell you what one should look like. But Patrick would be a better person to ask. We should all ask Patrick. He'll like that. Anything else?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yeah. I don't know where it's coming from.
Sorry, in the middle. So I know that 10 million is the magic number that we've been talking about, but is there also a certain age? Are there companies that are too old? Are there companies that are too young? Is there also an age restriction that would keep you from wanting to make a purchase decision on a company?
Yeah, there's no such thing as too old. No, not at all. I mean, the companies that were like born in 1950, that's great because it means they've hopefully got brand equity in their market. The youngest company we've acquired was less than 10 years old, and I'm fine with that, right? What we want to buy is a story of how a company has achieved predictable success. And quite honestly, what other buyers want to see is a story of how you have created repeatable, predictable success that will create value to shareholders. So, no, it's a good question.
I've got a question back here.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about process-driven businesses. Do you have any idea where we can go for resources on how to pull that off?
Yeah. Quite honestly, Brian Elias stole my 2 books. Look, Predictable Success is also a great book, but Traction is a great place to start. Like, I cannot recommend Traction more for how to build a process-driven business that will also have a clear vision where you're going and communicate that with employees. So, look, nobody's going to write your processes for you. You got to do it yourself. If you suck at it, then suck less, or hire somebody that will do it. Because literally, look, almost all of us know all the processes. We just hate writing them down, and we suck at writing them down, and then we're worse at making people do them. Hire somebody who will follow you around and write down all the processes, because we don't mind telling people what to do. We just don't like to write it down. So look, it's a process. You just have to step your way through it. And you start at one place, like a selling script. Write it down, start using it, refine it, make people use it, fire the people that don't use it. It's a process. That felt like a sucky answer, but buy Traction. It's a great book.
So you kind of teased it a little bit when you made reference to multiples that you're potentially buying companies at. I won't specifically ask you to tell me the multiples, but what impact do you think interest rates are going to have on privately held businesses? We've obviously seen a huge correction in the stock market because of interest rate pressures. How would you apply to that, and what advice would you give people that are sitting on the fence right now, saying like, I hear this a lot. I work for a large strategic and not in the flooring space, but a lot of business owners say, I'm going to wait till next year. I'm going to wait till next year. Maybe give your advice on that.
Yeah, I mean, the wait till next year is just because we're afraid of selling. So, I mean, that's a whole different problem. Prices and multiples will have downward pressure over the next 12 to 24 months. If you were going to sell your business, you should have done it 12 months ago because you would have gotten more money then than you'll get today and you'll get over the next 12 months. But flooring companies have a pretty set, they tend to sell for 4x EBITDA. That's a pretty standard price. There's obviously a million little caveats and parts and pieces to that, but they sell for 4x. If you have a great company and you can prove that it's magical without you, or that you're going to stay for 5 years, then you might get a 5. If your business has issues, some inconsistent performance, whatever those issues look like, you might get a 3x EBITDA. So if you have a $10 million business making $800,000 of EBITDA, you're going to get in between 2.4 and 4 million for selling that business. But pressure will be downward because interest rates are costing people more money. Inflation is definitely going to hurt that part. But look, when you're ready to sell your business, I would tend to say put it up for sale. You don't have to sell it. Matter of fact, a lot of people sell it for not as much as it was worth because they're not patient. Because we sell at the wrong time, right? We sell when I had a heart attack 6 months ago. We sell when I'm 74 and it doesn't look like I'm going to feel any better at 75. Or there's just no way out, and I've finally decided that maybe my kids who are 55 aren't going to come into the family business. Surprise! So look, you sell when your business is ready to sell, and you sell when things are going well, and you can demonstrate to somebody that you are worth 4 to 5x your EBITDA, and most of that in cash. That's what you want. So it's not going to get below 3. It'll stay 3 to 4, maybe 5. Anything else? Other questions?
What is your advice for buying a business? And what are the top 3 reasons why you should?
What is my advice for buying a business?
For buying somebody else's business.
Like buying a competitor?
Yeah, like for me, if I wanted to buy somebody, what's your advice on that? And what are some of the best reasons? Obviously, I don't have the 10 million, the capital for buying the 10 million, but I've had a lot of opportunities for 1 to 3.
Yeah.
And so anyway.
Okay. Actually, that's a great question. If any of you guys read Wall Street Journal, whatever, the concept of private equity is, I'm gonna take a long way to get to that answer, but I think this is important. there is a lot of stuff out there about private equity and how they're taking over healthcare and car washes and everything else, like HVAC, and they actually quite really haven't gotten involved in flooring, which is very pleasant. So the reason that they're so successful is because private equity has a general way of doing things, which is we raise a bunch of money, we're not private equity, it's just my wife and I, family owned. When you buy a business, let's say that we are buying a $10 million flooring company that had $800,000 of EBITDA, so we're gonna pay $3.2 million for that. Except I'm not gonna pay $3.2 million for that. I'm gonna put down about $800,000 or $900,000. I'm gonna make the owner do owner financing for 20% of that, and I'm gonna borrow the other 50%. Because financing it that way is magical and it makes money. Because the 30% equity you have, you can easily cash flow your loan payments as long as the business consistently continues to perform the way it did before you bought it, which is why it's really important to make sure that it's going to keep doing what it did before. When you do that, you can only put 30% down, and you can both cash flow the loan that you used to buy the business and collect other cash for deciding to buy the right business. So if you were going to go buy a competitor that is a $2 million competitor that wants to get out, it's not as bad as you think it is. Because you're already the operator, you are bolting on, which is a lot easier. That's the Jason Goldberg method, the bolt on. I'm going to take them, I'm going to put them into my processes and procedures that I know are going to work and are going to be successful. You're going to take that $1 million business that probably is making $100,000 if they're being honest, and you're going to pay them $300,000 for it, but you're going to make them finance $100,000 of it. You're going to put a $75,000 or $100,000 down, and you'll get the bank to finance the other $100,000. And it turns out that you can get that paid back pretty quickly. So that's how you work through the process of buying at that smaller scale. You are not putting 100%, you should not buy the whole thing with cash. You should leverage. Even with interest rates right now at 7%, the equation is still massively in your favor. If it gets above 10, then it's a little more exciting. But that is how these deals get done. So if you're thinking about it, that's how you do it. And quite honestly, I'm surprised that more flooring company owners don't look at that as a potential. The biggest caveat is you have to learn a lot to be able to get through the process of buying somebody else's business without effing it up, right?
Last question for Nick.
Last one was so good that I guess that's it. So if you guys have questions you want to ask outside of this, I'm sure I'll be wandering around for the rest of the day today and tomorrow, and I love making new friends. You also can, I'm not sharing my cell phone. I love those guys, but you're not getting my cell phone. But you can go to our website, or you can email me at nick@31stcapital.com. So nick@31stcapital.com, and then maybe I'll send you my phone number. But thank you guys. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate you laughing at my FTX jokes. So have a great day.